Everyone, welcome to today's seminar on our Smithai Master's Series of webinars. I'm Maddy Martin, and I've got Mac Mischke here today from WhatConverts. If you're not already familiar with Smithai, we're a 24/7 answering service. We provide call, chat, text, and Facebook message answering to small businesses around the country. And today we're going to be talking about how to track and convert more leads with WhatConverts and Smithai. And what's really fascinating is that WhatConverts is way more powerful than your standard call tracking platform. They track a lot more than just phone calls, but they do that very well. And joining me today to talk about this subject is Mac Mischke, Content Marketing Manager at WhatConverts. Mac, do you want to just introduce yourself before we get into the agenda today?
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Mac. I am in charge of content marketing and a lot of marketing in general at WhatConverts. I've been here about 2 years and I work a lot with some of our integration partners like Smithai, so that kind of no matter what software you're using to get your phone calls or your chats or whatever, WhatConverts is able to track all those leads. So we have a ton of integrations, and the one with Smithai we recently set up, and we're pretty excited about it.
Awesome, very cool. Well, glad to have you here. I'm going to share my screen and get into presentation mode. Froze there for a second, sorry about that. So let's just go through the agenda today really quickly. So why call tracking is critical to run successful marketing campaigns, absolutely. Essential call tracking features to gain actionable insights from campaigns. Essential virtual receptionist services to maximize conversions from campaigns. Best practices for using WhatConverts with Smithai, and that's really important. So we'll go through specific settings and use cases for getting the most out of the services and making sure there's nothing dropped and no pitfalls, and then how to avoid those pitfalls with both services. You know, Mac and I have seen, you know, a lot of folks who are in this space who might be competitors or alongside, and there are a lot of ways to sort of drop the ball, so to speak, when these calls are coming in. So we want to make sure that you're successful with any integration or any systems that you have related to your communications. But first, like before we get into, we were just talking about ice cream, right? But before we get into the agenda for today, I think the most important thing is just to frame this discussion around, you know, most of the time when we're talking about tracking inbound calls, we're talking about service-driven businesses, the majority of the businesses that Smithai works with, and I imagine a lot of those back that you work with, you know, you're delivering services. Maybe it's legal or finance or IT, maybe it's you know, wealth advising or home services, etc. And a lot of those services have leads who are calling, inquiring about them, and how can you help them, and are you the right fit? So the most frustrating thing, and I'll get to the ice cream, I promise you, the most frustrating thing with the calls is an unknown number calls you and you don't know if it's a well-qualified lead. And if you miss a call, you don't know what you missed out on. And you don't really know when you just have a main phone number and you didn't remember to ask, or asking is unreliable, how that person heard about your business. How do you go back to your marketing channels and say, I want to double down on that channel because I know it's, you know, really leading to very qualified leads who end up buying my services, who end up contracting with my firm, etc. So before we get into the whole lead discussion and tracking and call analytics and all of that, you know, let's talk about ice cream. And I like this analogy because it's summertime when we're recording. It's something we can all relate to. We all have childhood memories of saving up our, you know, in my case, babysitting money and going out and buying an ice cream cone. And, you know, the most frustrating and unfair feeling is when you've just bought something like an ice cream cone and someone bumps into you, or, you know, you get distracted. You know, here we are as kids in this scenario, and you let it melt all over your hand and you're thinking, man, I just completely wasted like my money, my opportunity to have a treat, have something that I earned and paid for and was going to enjoy. And then it's much the same way with leads, right? you easily can turn your back on business and miss it, and it's evaporated forever. You know, it's already dripped on the ground. You're not going to recover it. When you miss a phone call from a lead, you're very much doing the same thing. So this topic is really important today because just like ice cream, leads are fleeting. They have a time stamp on them, and it's very short-lived. So if you don't get that window of opportunity to answer the call and then to capture in that call the data to get those really good leads to call you again by investing in the right marketing campaigns, you really miss a significant opportunity to compete. So think back and have that emotional trigger for you in getting that momentum and getting that energy behind this, because it's something that most businesses are neglecting. And I find that if we think about it in simple terms like ice cream, then we can get remotivated to focus on it in a fun way that reminds us of, you know, how simple and important it is to not waste our money on, you know, generating those calls and making sure that we're tracking them to grow our business wisely. So, you know, leads are slipping through your fingers. One statistic that I'll share is from the legal industry. The Clio Legal Trends report reports on this every year, and it actually is very similar for all different business types. And what it is that 2 out of 3 potential clients base their decision to hire a firm on their initial responsiveness to a phone call or email or chat, et cetera, that first inbound communication channel. So what happens is 2 out of 3 people are saying, if you just pick up, I'm probably going to go with your business. And that's not just law firms. It's many service-driven, even product-driven businesses, local businesses, retail, et cetera. If you answer, if you show that you are alive and responsive, you are likely to get that business, and you have a leg up on anyone else who's in contention. So that's really the foundation that I want to start with today. And before we get into tracking, obviously we have to understand, you know, the funnel itself. The leads who are coming in, who are calling, we don't know if they're well qualified, if they're unqualified. Typically, when it comes to, you know, AdWords and paid campaigns, they're going to be more qualified because hopefully you're targeting the right keywords. Sorry, I don't know why there's a 5 on that screen. And you are focused on generating leads who are already expressing an interest in getting their needs met, and your business is about meeting those needs. If you are looking for a divorce attorney in Austin, Texas, and you are a divorce firm, match made in heaven. Okay, great. Family law firm, let's say. Now, there are going to be some questions that are asked, maybe in that initial conversation on the phone, maybe in a web form, and we'll talk about different techniques for achieving, getting that information. When that information comes through, let's say you complete a basic intake form, have a, you know, scheduled consultation, there are any conflict checks or, you know, sort of business documents that need to go through before the deal is done. Then someone signs on the dotted line and they say, yep, I'm moving forward with this business. They initially came through one of those marketing channels, right? So what we know, and what Mac I'm sure sees all the time, is when you track different phone numbers that are being used for different campaigns, you're able to possibly identify just by that phone call coming in through a certain number if it's going to be well qualified. Is it the number for Google organic search, or is it the number for AdWords? You're going to have a pretty good sense of whether or not that call is something to rush to answer or something that might not be the most qualified new lead, right? Now, as we think about analytics, we also want to think about cost of acquisition. So as we go through sort of the talk today, just to put a foundation here for, you know, framing your mind, let's say that we've got a, you know, a budget of $5,000 to spend to generate 1,000 website visitors. And we've got, you know, a client value of $2,000. If we get 10 clients at $2,000, then we're bringing in 20,000, having spent 5,000. Now that means that you're getting 80 leads out of those 1,000 visitors in this example. So out of 1,000 visitors, you have 80 people who say, you know, I'm going to actually stay here. I'm not immediately bouncing. I'm going to look at some content. Maybe I have the beginning of an intake form, or I start chatting in. 40 of them are actually qualified opportunities where they give you some information. They determine that they are the right fit. They're in their service area, practice area, business area, that actually is something that you do. 20 result in consultations or further discussion, and 10 actually retain. So those conversion rates are fairly, close to what we see in practice day to day, depending on the business. Let's say, a small HVAC company, locally, they're doing that. Maybe they're doing even better. It's summer and it's hot, whatever, if they have capacity, right? This doesn't take into account, labor costs or capacity with your technicians or attorneys or financial advisors to actually handle this new business. It expects that you have the capacity to handle it, right? So when we're talking about tracking, it's really important that we think about the cost already invested in getting that first phone call into the business, getting that first form completed for the business, because most of the cost that you are incurring and losing the opportunity on is upfront based on that click, based on getting that, ad ranked first in the pack on Google. Maybe you're also doing SEO work. There's significant investment to actually show up in order to get people to your website, in order to get people to see your ad, to call, etc. So when we think about opportunity cost and we think about other add-on services like receptionists and call tracking, those are actually very nominal fees when you think about the actual cost of the campaigns. So we'll talk about costs a little bit later in the presentation, but the main thing here is to not lose the cost that you've already invested by not picking up the call, not tracking the call, and not understanding how important certain channels are to your business, when everything right now might be just coming into your main number. So there is a worksheet here for you that you can use later for your own exercise to determine what is the business value of a retained client, etc. You will also have access to this whole slide deck. And you can do that to determine, how much are you actually spending, how much are you getting in from clients, and what is the actual value of every new client to your business, so that when you add on certain services, like Mac is going to talk about WhatConverts, I'll talk a little bit about Smithai, you have a good sense of how this is meaningful and not a huge additional cost, but actually a recuperative cost for the business that you might already be losing, or the channels that you might not be investing in as much as you might need to leverage the best marketing channels for your business.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie. So I'm going to dive into really what WhatConverts is and how it pairs well with Smithai. So WhatConverts is an all-in-one lead tracking platform that also allows people to manage and report on their leads. We've found that there's a big gap, whether you're a marketer at an agency or a business running marketing campaigns, there's a huge gap in how people are able to actually measure the success of those campaigns. So, a tool like Google Analytics might be able to show you got this many conversions or goal completions from your Google ads or your Google, your SEO. But without actually being able to see the individual leads, it's very hard to know whether those leads were qualified, what the value of those leads were, and adjust your marketing spend afterwards to actually prioritize the marketing that delivers your best leads. So a couple of statistics we've found is that about 70% of marketers who are rolling out digital marketing strategies struggled with marketing attribution, with assigning a marketing source to every lead that comes in. And when you think about how much we spend on digital marketing overall, whether it's SEO, ads, social, it's kind of alarming to think that you can't actually measure the success of those campaigns. So another statistic is that 20% of marketers struggle to only 20% of marketers can actually measure the ROI of all their marketing campaigns. And for some reason, a lot of marketing is just allowed to go out in the hopes that it delivers new leads without actually seeing ROI from it. And we created WhatConverts to sort of help marketers show that, hey, these campaigns are working, they're delivering an ROI. It's worthwhile to spend more on marketing or to shift spend in one direction. WhatConverts was actually born out of the founders used to work at a marketing agency, and they really struggled to show clients the ROI of what they were giving the agency. So they wanted a way to do that. So the three big things are tracking leads, managing leads, and reporting on leads. As you can see in the image, WhatConverts gathers all this data on a lead that comes in. So if they call you, WhatConverts can tell you who they are, most importantly, including their phone number and any contact information. It can tell you the marketing source that they came from. And then it can tell you, what type of conversion it was, whether it was a phone call, a chat, a form fill, or if your website has transactions, you can track leads that way as well. So that's kind of the top of how the platform works, is gathering this information on leads. The next step is qualifying, you can go back, is qualifying and assigning value to the leads. So the way that WhatConverts is able to do this is by tracking individual leads. We don't just give raw numbers on you got 20 form fills or 20 calls this month. We actually track the individual leads. So you can go into the lead detail, see the call transcript or the call recording, and then mark the lead as qualified or not. And then the final step there is generating reports. Based on all this data we collect, WhatConverts has a custom report builder that allows you to create reports and schedule them so that you can see, hey, last month, my Google ads brought in this many leads worth this much money, and maybe we should allocate some more spend to that. And so on the next slide here, we can see some of the details of what it looks like in WhatConverts when you're in the capture leads stage. So this is the step one. So we're gathering all these leads in here. You can see on the left, it says the type of leads. You've got calls, a lot of calls. There's one form and one chat lead in here. You can see where you can mark leads as quotable. A couple of these are not set, and you can also mark them as not quotable, and that way they won't be included in your reports when you're showing which leads are working. So this is a really important step. If your business gets a lot of calls and you notice that a lot of these calls are spam, or there's solicitors who are trying to sell you something, you obviously don't want those calls included in your marketing reports that are showing which marketing channels are working. If you're not qualifying or marking leads as quotable, then you're going to have a really skewed perception of which campaigns are working. You might have a Google ad that's attracting a lot of spam for some reason, and it looks like you're getting a lot of calls from it. But if you then the next month shift more money towards that ad because you think it's working, that's going to be a huge waste of your marketing spend. So this is what the dashboard looks like in terms of just seeing all your leads in one place. And if you click on the eye on the left, and we can go to the next slide here, it'll show the actual details for each of the leads that comes in. So for this call lead, you can see the call transcription, and you can read through that and decide whether or not you think this lead is quotable and what their quote value might be. So going into the individual lead details and taking these extra steps to mark them as quotable and assigning a value allows you to create much more valuable reports that spit out on the other side that really tells you whether your marketing is working to deliver quotable leads that have a high sales value. So on the next slide, we can see some of the reports that you're able to produce with this type of data. So this is all from the WhatConverts report builder. And this is an example from the HVAC industry. We have a lot of clients in here. So you might be wondering, if you're doing a lot of SEO work, you might be wondering how those different landing pages that you're creating keywords on and trying to get rankings for, how they're converting. So you can see here a leads by landing page report that is really simple and just tells you how many calls, how many forms, how many chats you're getting from this. And on each of these reports, they're live and clickable, which means you can see the actual leads underneath this data. So that's really a big differentiator for WhatConverts versus, say, Google Analytics, is that Google Analytics would only show you the number of goal completions, whereas WhatConverts allows you to click on this and see the actual leads, which would look like that first slide I showed with all the lead details there.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that, Mac, because that is something that is relevant for Smithai. It's relevant for a lot of companies. So when you look at Google Analytics and you see, for example, the events that fire based on activities on the site, for example, you might have a chat start, for example, Smithai chat. You can say like a chat conversation has started, or it's completed, it was closed out, information was added. A phone call was, a phone number was clicked, maybe a button was clicked, but actually saying like, this is the person who did that, Google is not going to give you that information. So you get a timestamp, you can triangulate it if you have maybe those leads when they fill out a form or they have a call coming into Slack or your email or something. We at Smithai have that data that comes through, and based on timing, we can sort of get that information, but that is a ton of manual work, and it is a nightmare when it comes to reporting and aggregating data under the buckets that matter, which are those marketing channels. They are the keywords. They're the brand versus the non-brand campaigns. They're the different advertising channels, Google versus Bing, Facebook, display ads versus keyword ads, etc. Retargeting, what impact does that have? If you don't have the actual names, then you also don't have the actual value. So you might find that, sure, there are, plenty of people who are signing up and coming in. They might have different values. They might have different sales cycles. There might be some clients who, for some reason, from certain channels, take a very long time to make a decision to buy or to move forward, and others who are very quick to move forward, where that revenue is sort of like realized and paid back to you for the campaign sooner. So that can fund other longer sales cycles if you need it to. All of that data, it doesn't matter if you see a count of 5 goal conversions in Google Analytics, if you don't actually know who those people are, and then you can track them as individual opportunities that become sales, hopefully, that can be repeated, that can be referrals, and so on. So that level of granularity and tying everything here together is so essential to actually having actionable stuff to do from this data.
Yeah, and the way it would look in WhatConverts is if you pulled up this report and you clicked on it, if you can go back 2 slides, you would then see something like this that would show you each of the leads that made up, the 27 calls or the forms in that report. And you can then click on them individually to sort of verify them. Because if you're showing this to someone and you're saying, hey, look, we got this many leads from this landing page, you want to be able to say, these are the actual leads that are in there. I can verify that they're real and they're delivering us revenue. So we can go back to that slide I was on earlier, and I can show a few more reporting examples. On the next slide, there is, this is a good example of how WhatConverts reporting can impact your Google Ads campaigns. So if a person comes to your site and from a Google ad and they call you, WhatConverts can track that back to the campaign and the keyword for that Google ad. So this really lets you see which ads are working. And what we found a lot is that phone calls often end up being a business's most valuable type of conversion. Maybe people are filling out forms and chats as well, but they aren't as sticky, whereas phone calls, generally, if a person is willing to go so far as to call you, that's a really valuable possible lead. And so if you're finding that your phone calls are your most valuable leads, you want to target the Google ads that are actually delivering phone calls. And again, with this type of report, you can click into it and see the individuals sort of behind each of these numbers to see which Google ads are actually delivering your best leads and which keywords you can then go back and shift spend away from, one keyword that's maybe delivering a lot of chat leads, but not a lot of call leads. You can shift it to the keywords that are actually delivering your most valuable phone call leads.
So I have a question. So Mac,
Yeah.
when it comes to leads, obviously, that's not the total end game, it's also the revenue. Are you also tying into CRMs so that you can see the actual client value and maybe the lifetime of that value?
Yeah, so WhatConverts connects with most CRMs people use. Salesforce is obviously a really popular one, but anytime you update a quote value in WhatConverts or a lead in WhatConverts, it then goes into, say, Salesforce. And then when Salesforce, if you have a salesperson there or whatever, that is updating with the revenue value, that will then send back into WhatConverts and update the quote value there. So with any integration, we're passing information to it to send leads in, and then we're collecting information back into it. So if you say use a CRM to show the revenue that you're getting from each lead, but you want to use WhatConverts to produce reports that kind of tie more into the marketing side of things, then you can make sure that the marketing reports are updated with all the sales information. So it's often a conflict at a lot of places between marketing and sales, figuring out how much of the revenue is coming from marketing and how much are salespeople having to reach out and do stuff on their own without marketing help. And WhatConverts is sort of a lot of people think of it as a CRM for marketers, so they can see, even after a lead is passed on from marketing, how much that lead is worth and tie it all the way back to the original marketing source, so that the marketers know, as well as the salespeople, which marketing campaigns are delivering revenue.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. And I think it also solves a problem for a lot of people who are using a CRM, where getting Google Analytics data actually into something like Salesforce, unless you have gobs of cash to spend on Google Analytics 360, it's actually quite an expensive proposition. A lot of the tools are, just for getting Google Analytics into Salesforce, but $250 to $1,000 a month. So that's something that's not tracking your calls, tracking your, chats and form fills. It's literally just bringing data from one place to another, because it can be fairly complex. So having that data in actually both of those places so that you can, manipulate it in the way that you need to, and that each team can see it in the way that they need to, that's actionable for them. For the marketing team, maybe they really live in WhatConverts. For the sales team, maybe they're living in Salesforce. That allows them to use the data that is most relevant to them, and then also get their heads together and say, like, okay, sales team, who do you want more of? Who's working really well for you? And for the marketing team to say, look, we're exhausting certain channels, or it's, reaching our pay, per click or pay per lead budget. What is the next, most viable sort of lead source that you are happy with those leads that are coming in through? There's a lot of sort of dialogue there. And even on the organic side, right, Mac, like that's a huge opportunity to say, like, these organic leads are actually like ones that we need to be bidding on. And our capacity to bid more is substantiated by the value we see in Salesforce, that those leads who come in through those keywords, we can actually bid more for them, because they do end up paying, at this conversion rate, at this, sales cycle. Within 4 weeks, we expect to, make all of our money back for that campaign or whatever. So that is really important, to expand your marketing and to see where can you invest in more and compete for those maybe harder to reach keywords that, are you just going to start spending money on them? Probably not, especially in this day and age when, we're looking at a law firm example here. Some of those keywords are very expensive, and you're not going to bid up on them unless you know that it's going to pay you back.
Yeah, and what we found a lot is that there's a problem with marketers where they will get leads and see that they're coming in, but then sort of that's the end point. They pass them along to the sales team, or they pass them into a CRM, and they move on to getting the next leads. But if you can actually follow the leads to see how much revenue they end up being worth, and you can tie that back to the marketing source, you can get a lot better idea about next month, which keywords should we target, which channels in general should we target, as opposed to just gathering leads and then moving on. And that kind of ties into the next slide, which is—
So Mac, just before you go into that, just 1 second. I just want to address a question before we get even more in depth here that came through. So Justin is asking, with their specific business, which is a law firm, a number of firms, they're all separate and they're not getting aggregated sales data except through the accounting team, basically. So is it possible to put a person, maybe as an administrator, to true up the sales data in WhatConverts across multiple sort of linked accounts or branches, basically, of the same business as the revenue comes in?
Yeah, so that's one of the big perks of WhatConverts, is that it allows multiple people at a business to access the dashboard and update data. And you can set permissions for each person. So maybe you want an accountant to have the permission to update the sales data, but not have other permissions in WhatConverts. And that's all possible. It's really, in a lot of ways, it's helpful for one of our main other sort of target clients is marketing agencies who want their clients to be able to see it. So,
or even franchise groups, I imagine.
Yep, franchises.
Very siloed, visibility, but in sort of a home office, so to speak, that needs to see the data.
So whoever has the data can go in and update it, and then maybe it ends up being on the marketing team to produce the reports, but the data is in there thanks to someone else being able to access the dashboard.
Okay, great. All right, sorry, on to your next slide.
No worries. Yeah, so this last slide here in the reporting section sort of ties in what we were talking about with regards to seeing the value of each of your marketing campaigns based on the service. So WhatConverts allows you to put in custom fields. So let's say you have a landing page or section on your site for each of these different services that your company offers. You can create a custom field in WhatConverts just right within the reporting section that would put everyone who comes from your wealth management page into a bucket, everyone who comes from your investment page into a bucket. And this is how you can kind of take the reporting to the next level to see which of my services that I offer are delivering the most valuable leads. Whether you're targeting certain keywords in a Google Ads campaign, you can send all those people into a custom field bucket that is separated by each of your services. So this allows you to sort of see which services should we spend the most money promoting, which are going to give us the biggest return on investment for promoting certain keywords. The target, in this case, wealth management, is clearly delivering the most valuable leads. And maybe if you're targeting a bunch of brokerage keywords, which are delivering your least amount of lead value, you can sort of dial that back, knowing that you may be spending a lot of marketing and you're not getting the ROI from your brokerage keywords, but you are seeing a really good ROI from your wealth management keywords. So reports like this sort of help you change your whole general marketing direction. And without this data, you're kind of blind to, you may have an idea, maybe you think that your retirement services are delivering your most valuable leads, but unless you're actually going in, seeing which leads are coming in and putting them into buckets like this, you can't be sure. So doing this can really give you a much more clear, accurate understanding of, if I spend this much on marketing targeting these keywords or this messaging, how much am I really going to get back?
Well, and also, like, do you put the form up higher on the page? Do you want people to fill out forms, or do you want people to click on that big bright orange phone number, et cetera? Like, how obvious can you make certain elements that convert better on the page? The other question that I have, Mac, is if you're looking at like the total lead value, are you also bringing in like AdWords data to see like how much was actually spent to bring in that vertical of leads? Or is that something that you might do, back in AdWords?
So yeah, we integrate with AdWords, and a lot of people use some other tools to sort of manage their ads budgets.
Mhm.
So if you're integrating WhatConverts with a tool like AdWords or a tool, Optimizely is another example of budget management software, then you can just sort of compare the simple WhatConverts report showing your revenue from this to the AdWords report showing your spend from this. So we're not a budget management software in terms of helping you manage your Google ad spend, but we do show you the end results of your ad spend, which you can then compare to what you were spending on the ads to, see which numbers are highest.
Okay, got it. And do you, what about, like Facebook lead gen ads or things that might be, like we're talking a lot about on-site conversions or phone call conversions. What about conversions that happen actually on the advertising channel themselves, like Facebook lead gen ad or LinkedIn conversational ad, where they're taking an activity actually on that social network?
Yeah, so we have integrations with pretty much all the social platforms you'd be advertising on. So as long as you've set up the integration and it's a lead coming in, that lead will come into WhatConverts and be shown on there. So maybe you're managing the ads and maybe even looking at some analytics within Facebook's ads manager or LinkedIn. But if you want to see all your leads in one place from every marketing channel, WhatConverts can pull them all in. And that's what we found is really valuable, is that instead of seeing your leads from Google in Google Ads and then switching over to Facebook and then switching over to whatever other channel you're using, you can gather all your leads in one place and create reports that show sort of a holistic picture of what's going on with your marketing, as opposed to clicking back and forth between tabs and logging into different things.
Got it. Okay, fantastic. So if anyone else has questions, I could probably keep asking Matt questions for the entire duration of the webinar, but I will move on to presentation mode myself in a moment. Do you want to just talk a little bit more about reporting, Mac?
Yeah, so this is just what it looks like to create those types of reports that I showed earlier. So it's a pretty simple setup here. You're choosing the data that you want to report on. If you see just to the right of that green box, there's a green plus symbol and an X symbol, and that's where you add different data that you want to report. So in this case, we're looking at the keyword, the content, the numbers under the content of the Google Ads IDs, but you can see, you can change that in WhatConverts to an actual, words that mention which Google ad it is. And then we're also looking at the landing page path here. So you could add other data such as the lead page, which is the page they were on when they actually converted. In this case, all these ads lead to the same landing page. If you had more ads leading to other landing pages, you would see that data here as well. So that's the data on one end, and then the metrics that you're actually looking for. In this case, it's going to be the lead type. So here we're seeing calls, messages, forms, and chats. You can change that to just the quotable leads or see the sales value for each lead coming in. So this is just this is the custom report builder, and this is how you create these types of reports that I was showing earlier. And if you go to the next slide, you can see what it looks like for if you are measuring for quote value. So as long as somebody at your company is updating the quote value, you can then create reports that will show the value of each of these keywords, each of these campaigns, what you're really getting from it. So this is just a quick overview of how sort of simple the report builder is, and how at the same time you can add really as much data as you want in here. It all starts obviously with us tracking all these leads, but it funnels down on the other end to these reports that you can then spit out if you are gathering really every bit of marketing that you're doing with your company.
Got it. Yeah, very interesting. I mean, I can imagine that for those of you who are also thinking, as often is the case with any, marketing campaign, are you experimenting with sending people to a very, informational blog post versus a landing page versus a video or webinar? Maybe it's all about teeth whitening, for an example, right? It's an elective service. People are looking at it. There might be some education, by video or with long form blog content, maybe an infographic on, the sentiment or testimonial around people who had teeth whitening. There are probably a bunch of different landing pages that you could drive people to. And you could even have one keyword with multiple different landing page paths, and then see, all right, what's the value if we start them off by checking out that video, or start them off by reading a blog post, or start them off by just sending them into an inquiry form, and then they get a call back and a demo, which leads to a better result. And I think there are a lot of corollaries there for different service providers who might, be in an HVAC business or financial advising or law, IT, et cetera. A lot of these, there are a lot of options when it comes to landing pages, and not just like the marketing channel itself. When you get on that page, do you call or chat or text or fill out a form? That's an activity after you've already gotten on the page. But the question is really like, what page are you sending them to? Because that has a lot to do with whether or not they're going to take an action, in the first place. So I love the availability of options here is really robust, and it's really based on, whatever your business needs. Mac, is there anything else you wanted to share here?
Just as a last point, based on what you said, adding I think it's one thing I do as a marketer with WhatConverts. Obviously, we use our own tool to analyze our own marketing, but adding the lead page into this type of report is really interesting, because it can, if you see the landing page and the lead page are the same, that tells you that your landing page is working to convert leads. If you see that it's different, that can tell you a number of different things. It can say, okay, your landing page is making people want to click around to the rest of your site, and they're using a different lead page to actually convert. And maybe if you just made that lead page your landing page, you might get some more conversions.
Right. Are they seeking out more information, and are you potentially actually hurting your conversion rate? Because the more they seek, the less they actually end up converting. So, and that's actually an interesting thing. One of the recommendations we have there is to add chat and see if they ask their question in chat instead of asking their question by trying to navigate your website. So that can actually keep them on the lead page and still drive them towards that conversion without forcing them to hunt around, because we know most small business websites do not have a search bar on them. So when they have to search around, it can really be sort of like stumbling in the dark and trying to use the navigation and not knowing where they're going. So all of those things don't improve your conversion rate. Now, obviously, we don't have a ton of time left, and I think it was really valuable that we spent a lot on WhatConverts. So, I'll move pretty quickly through this because I want to make sure that everyone has the really valuable information of how to actually connect WhatConverts and Smithai. So, we spent a lot of time earlier talking about the importance of answering and being responsive to these leads that Mac is talking about, generating and tracking. There's not a whole lot to track if you don't actually have a place to capture leads. And the number one way to capture leads is still, incoming phone calls. So form fills, remain very important. Chats and texts are increasingly important, but when the consumer expects an instantaneous response, it's often by phone, and they're often not going to wait for you to call them back, with about less than 50% of inbound calls getting answered on callbacks when that number is unrecognized. So if you don't pick up that initial call, it's unlikely you're going to get in touch with that lead unless you keep trying and trying again. So the reason for that is spam calls. People are seeing an unknown number and they don't think it's necessarily the business that they just tried to call, unless it is like really instant that that callback is made within like a minute. The other issue is obviously these lead forms are filled, and if your traffic mix isn't really dialed in, it could actually be with people who are not well qualified leads. So you need to have people on the front lines to say, look, it's critical that we are answering the phone, that we're calling back web form leads, that we're responsive on chat. But if we don't ask those critical questions that come in through quality intake forms, those leads should not be scheduled for a consultation or moved into Salesforce, let's say, as someone to work if they're unworkable. Maybe they don't meet the criteria that you have to screen leads. They're not in the right geographic area. They don't have the right demographic. Maybe you only work with residential customers and they're in a commercial space. So one of the things that Smithai does is we qualify leads that come in, we answer those calls, and we make sure that they are actually right for that business before putting them in touch, before transferring a call, scheduling an appointment, making a call back and nurturing leads to make sure that they do in fact make their appointment. And even for existing clients that might be calling, that they get the help that they need in that responsive answer from that business. Interestingly, on the existing client front, those who get sort of that instant response, because we're talking a lot about leads, those who are existing customers will spend more money with a business when they feel they're receiving excellent service. And excellent service is often synonymous with responsive, prompt, fast service where you're not waiting for a callback. So there are a lot of pitfalls that we've seen with phone services. And the main thing is really, in this case, tracking and lack of visibility into who is calling. And then the other issue is obviously with a lot of phone providers, there are ring delays and latency. There's no tracking or analytics with, pretty much any VoIP system. So you have to layer on solutions like WhatConverts and like Smithai to make sure that you're getting not just an answer and you're being prompt, but also that it sounds in-house, that it's professional, that it represents your business brand and tone, and that you're not just taking a basic message, because that person is going to feel like things are still up in the air. They want to make sure that they're being taken care of, that their time is going to be well spent with that business. If they just say, I'll take your name and number, and then you're waiting for a call back to see if you pass muster, that doesn't give you a very good sense that you should stop your search. They're going to keep looking for businesses. In the meantime, the most important thing is really to get on the calendar. So one of the best practices, in addition to, calling back multiple times and not letting leads just sort of die on the vine after one or two attempts, is to use a calendaring solution with your receptionist service, with your call tracking service, so that you can also see in the funnel, even if they haven't yet converted. Calendly, for example, will integrate with Salesforce, and through Zapier, you can connect these things as well. It's really important to see like what activities, in addition to calls, in addition to a receptionist answering and giving you the best chance at winning that lead with a quality conversation, an appointment scheduled is actually a really strong indicator of intent and the quality and strength of that inbound lead from a call or form or chat, whatever. So if you have a phone call that comes through that also has an appointment associated with it, then you better believe that's one you're going to rate with a higher probability of closing in a system like Salesforce example, which can give you the ability to have a heat rating on, is this a warm or hot lead? What's the probability? Is it, 50 or 80% that it will close? Calendaring solutions really do help you, and that's why Smithai works with them to book appointments for you. We also work with intake forms so that when we're on that call, we're collecting more data, again, to bring back into your analysis to say, look, were you able to complete an intake form on that call? Yes, we were. There's the information. Even if they didn't schedule an appointment or that's not appropriate for your business, that information being collected, that lead being willing to take the time to give you answers to those key questions, is a serious quality indicator that they are sincere about working with your business. And these can be pretty complex. They can also be lead gen magnets where they're maybe playing with calculator tools on your site, or they're trying to do estimates. Is this, work something that I'm going to invest in with this business? An example here is just for flooring businesses. How much is it going to cost me to do this project? The CTA there, that button click that we were talking about before, maybe it opens a form, maybe it presents a phone number, get started with this service that you're trying to estimate. You can also have that specifically on a landing page that you're tracking to see, like, do those tools and calculators work effectively to generate those leads, right? Because that might be something that you're driving a lot of organic traffic to, potentially also paid traffic. So, Smithai does all of these things and more. We also have bilingual services, so no matter who you're serving, you have that in-house responsiveness. If your clients expect you to speak Spanish, then so do we. And we integrate with the tools that you're using, such as Google Analytics and WhatConverts and Salesforce, Zapier, and many more. We also have free spam blocking. So yes, we know that everyone gets those calls and you're not going to pay for those. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip through a few of these features because I will share this deck with you after. We all know that the benefits are pretty significant here to improve your marketing results, but really thinking about WhatConverts and Smithai with the setup is critical here. There is a help doc that's dedicated just to your setup. And I will share this in the chat just so that you have access to it immediately. But the main point is that you really want to have accounts with WhatConvert and Smithai before you get started, so that you have everything that you need to walk through those steps in the help doc, because we're going to ask you, for example, in the WhatConverts form for your Smithai number, you need to have a destination number set up for Smithai to answer your calls. And you can do some things to set up your WhatConverts account in the meantime, so that you've got your tracking in place, you've got your tags for various campaigns in place. And then when you get your Smithai number provisioned, you can have it as your destination number, either choosing to forward all calls to Smithai or only some of them if you have a menu. So for example, if you have sales calls, if you have support calls, new or existing clients, accounting and billing matters might go to an accounting team, where all other calls might go to Smithai. Obviously, you have to think about what channels are coming through. So
yeah, and I'll just say, just for anyone who's not familiar with how call tracking works, the way it is you have a series of numbers that are displayed. Your main number is displayed on your site, but when a new visitor comes, WhatConverts swaps that number out with a tracking number. So when they call that number, it connects to your main number, or if you're using Smithai, it connects to the Smithai number. So all you have to do is make sure that your destination number, where each of these different call tracking numbers will go, is to the Smithai number.
Awesome. That's exactly right. And the main reason for this is that, yes, there is, click to call tracking and things like that. You might see, AdWords, Google Analytics, but again, that doesn't tell you when someone actually picks up the phone to call. Many times you're not clicking to call, and many times it doesn't tell you actually who it was. It's very hard to go back and sort of triangulate that lead. So critical to know who exactly that was, tie it back to your CRM so that you have all of that rich data that Smithai pulled in, that your intake team or your new accounts team might have pulled in and entered into your CRM. And you can see, okay, well, they originally came from organic Google search. They originally came from your lead gen ads, whatever the case may be. You're going to pick a few numbers so that multiple leads can call at the same time, so that you can handle sufficient volume, and all of those can be grouped and directed to Smithai as your destination number. Again, you can send all calls, or you can send it on a call flow. Smithai can be your backup for overflow if you have in-office answering already. We can be after hours, we can be weekends, nights, mornings, whatever you need, lunch hour. And you can also have it set up so that Smithai only answers your press 1 for sales calls, for example. If you have organic leads who might be coming through, that's important because on the paid search and paid per click side, almost all of those are going to be actually like new potential leads and not existing clients. So there are a few things to consider. Make sure that you're not ringing to your VoIP provider using round robin or setting ring limits in a way that actually prevents Smithai from getting to the call. Sometimes there are an extra couple rings or one ring where it's actually in the process of forwarding to Smithai. You are adding basically a step within your phone system. So you should expect an extra ring. If you don't allow for enough of a ring limit, then the call might actually cut to voicemail before it goes to Smithai, depending on the tolerance of your VoIP system. We found that that can be a problem in the past. We also really encourage you to make sure that you're in compliance with all state laws if you're going to record your calls. Obviously, that's a feature that you can enable on a variety of platforms, but the onus is on you as the business owner to determine if that is acceptable in your state, if you have to play a recording that says, to be, disclosing that the call is recorded, or if you don't need to disclose that. And that's obviously important if those call recordings are needed for your business. Obviously with Smithai, you get a call summary. So if they're not recorded, that call summary can be a very good proxy for what happened on that call. Chat transcripts and text transcripts, you're going to get the entire conversation. Anything else here? Obviously, testing is essential. Mac, that you wanted to share before we jump?
No, I mean, you guys are the experts on getting calls answered. So I'll leave that to you. I can just go over the pricing real quick for WhatConverts. Sure. Really, the pricing depends on how many calls you're getting and how many people you want to have access to the account. And then on the far right, our agency plan is really applying to people who want to give a ton of different people access to accounts, like their different clients. But these are numbers that are available on the WhatConverts website, and these sliders, you can adjust them based on how many numbers you think you'll need, which is based on what kind of website traffic or how many leads you're getting. So the pricing, you can play with those sliders to see which sort of pricing you want to go with.
Awesome, very cool. So I wanted to make sure that we got that link for everyone here. So if you go to whatconverts.com/page/smith.ai, I tried to copy that link, but it's not linked. I will share that in the recap. You can obviously type it in as well. You get a 30-day free trial, which is really amazing. So take advantage of that. I think, Mac, it's double what you guys normally offer.
Yep. Yeah, it's double the normal offer.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. For Smithai, we start at $210 a month, which is far less than the cost of a receptionist and far, far less than the cost of missing those leads. So we all know what a lead is worth to us, and that includes free spam blocking, one free CRM integration, which we really emphasize the importance of today. And you start off with 30 calls a month, so very low volume, threshold to get started. Goes way beyond actually 150 calls a month. We can do very high volume plans, and there are additional price breaks as you get up into the higher volume. So all additional services are completely optional and month to month. So there's complete flexibility in what we offer based on whatever your business needs. And things are per call, not per minute. So you can really closely align every incremental cost with the cost with WhatConverts, with the cost with AdWords. You're paying per click, you're paying per call, you're paying for these activities, you're not paying per minute, right? So that's really important to think about, that marketing funnel that I showed you earlier, how to sort of bring together all the costs to get that client in the door. That's something that we see as really important, charging per call for predictable billing and also really predictable marketing funnel analysis. You can get started, in as little as 1 to 2 days. We do have a 14-day money back guarantee, and we have $100 off for everyone who joined us today and any WhatConverts clients. The code is WhatConverts, easy to remember, and you can visit us online at Smith.ai. Obviously, Mac and I are happy to answer any questions that you might have, even though we are up for time. You can email us. I'm Maddy at Smith.ai, and Mac is Mac at WhatConverts.com. Let me just, oh, perfect. Mac, thanks so much for sharing the link. I will stop the screen share and just thank everyone for joining us today. And Mac, you especially, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right, wonderful. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.